The bathroom was cold. The tiles were old and cracked, and the light above the mirror flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or give up. Sarah sat on the edge of the bathtub, her hands shaking as she stared at the small white stick in her hands. She didn't want to look at it, but she had to. A second pink line. Her heart dropped. Her breath got stuck somewhere between her chest and her throat. She blinked once, twice. No change. It was still there. She was pregnant, 17, senior year of high school, and pregnant. She felt like the air had been pulled out of the room. The sounds of her little brother playing video games in the living room suddenly felt far away. Her ears rang. Her hands went cold. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. She was going to have a baby. How was she going to tell her mom? Or her stepdad Ron, who already barely looked at her like she belonged in the house? What about school? College? Her friends? Sarah felt her world crack into pieces like a glass bowl dropped from too high. She put the test down, folded her arms around herself, and cried. It wasn't supposed to be this way. She was the smart one, the quiet one, the one teachers liked. She was supposed to go to college. She had dreams of becoming a writer. Stories filled her notebooks, but none of them looked like this. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed with her hand over her belly, like the answer might come if she stayed still long enough, but nothing made sense. The next morning, she walked to school as usual, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. She avoided her best friend Cassie. She couldn't even look at her. They'd made plans to move to New York together. Right. Travel. Live freely. Sarah walked past the library window and caught her reflection. She looked the same, but she wasn't the same. By lunch, the fear got to her. She texted Cassie, "Can we talk after school?" Alone, Cassie texted back right away, "Of course. You okay?" Sarah stared at the screen, then typed, "No, but I will be." They met at the edge of the football field, where the grass was tall and dry. Sarah pulled Cassie aside, her eyes already wet. "I need to tell you something, but please don't freak out." Cassie's face went pale. "What happened?" Sarah took a deep breath, like jumping into a freezing lake. "I'm pregnant." Cassie blinked. "You're what?" "I found out yesterday. I took the test 3 times. I'm 17 and pregnant and scared out of my mind." There was silence, a long one. Sarah felt it stretch and snap. Then Cassie whispered, "Who knows?" "No one, just you." Cassie looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. "I didn't plan this," Sarah said quickly. "It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And I don't know what I'm going to do." Cassie nodded slowly. "Do you know what you want?" Sarah wiped her nose. "No, I don't even know where to start." That night, she sat across from her mom in the kitchen. The TV was on low. Ron was asleep on the recliner in the living room. "Mom," she said, her voice small. Her mom looked up from her mug of tea. Sarah's hands shook. "I need to tell you something." The silence was thick. "I'm pregnant." Her mother's face dropped. "What?" she whispered. "I'm pregnant." Her mother put her mug down. "Are you joking?" "I wish I was." For a moment, her mother said nothing, just stared, then shook her head slowly. "No, Sarah. No, you're the smart one. How could you be so stupid?" Sarah felt tears pushing against her eyelids. "I didn't plan this. I made a mistake." Her mother stood up, pacing. "What about school? What about college? What about your future?" "I don't know." Ron woke up then, groggy. "What's going on?" "She's pregnant," her mother snapped. She threw her whole future away. Sarah couldn't take it. She stood up and walked out the front door, into the night. The cold air slapped her face, but it felt better than sitting in that kitchen. She ended up at the park down the street, sat on a swing, rocked slowly back and forth while the stars blinked above her. She felt like the sky wide, dark and lost. Days passed, then weeks. Everyone at school found out. Cassie tried to protect her, but someone saw her buying vitamins. At the pharmacy, the whispers started. The stares. The girls who used to talk to her turned away. The boys joked behind her back, Her teachers didn't say anything, but they looked at her differently, like they were disappointed. Even her guidance counselor suggested she start looking at alternative paths, like trade school or GED programs. It was like everyone had already decided. She was done. No future, no dreams, no success, just another statistic. But Sarah wasn't done. The more they pushed her down, the harder she gripped her notebook. The more they turned away, the more determined she became. She studied harder. She wrote every night. She kept her grades up. She joined online groups for teen moms. She read books. She watched videos. She taught herself about pregnancy, about babies, about health. She was scared, but she was also stubborn. This was her life, her story, and she wasn't going to let it be written by someone else. One morning, while staring at her growing belly in the mirror, she whispered, "They think I'm done, but I'm just getting started." And deep down she knew she was going to prove them all wrong. Sarah stood in front of the school bathroom mirror, tugging at the waistband of her jeans. They didn't fit anymore. Her belly was growing. Every week, it became more obvious. She sighed and pulled on an oversized hoodie. It was her brother's. It smelled like old cologne and laundry soap, but it helped her feel hidden, at least a little. In the hallways, students still whispered. Some moved away from her like she was contagious. One boy called her teen mom out loud in the cafeteria and laughed. She didn't say anything, but that night, she cried into her pillow. It hurt, not just the shame, but the loneliness. Even Cassie had started acting different. She still answered her texts, still hung out sometimes, but it wasn't the same. Her words felt forced. Her smiles felt tired. Sarah couldn't blame her. Their lives were going in different directions. While Cassie talked about prom and graduation, Sarah read about breast pumps and prenatal vitamins. While the other girls planned their senior trip, Sarah made budget lists on how to afford diapers, formula, and second-hand baby clothes. Her mom stayed cold. Ron didn't speak to her unless he had to. Sometimes Sarah would walk past the nursery aisle in the grocery store and run her fingers along the soft baby blankets. She'd imagine what her daughter might look like. Would she have Sarah's eyes? Her chin? Her smile? She didn't know what was coming, but one thing was certain. She was going to love that baby with her whole heart. By the time she was 7 months pregnant, school was almost unbearable. Teachers were beginning to subtly suggest she stay home. "You can complete your classes online," they said. "Take some time off. Focus on being a mom." But Sarah didn't want to stay home. She wanted to graduate. She wanted her cap and gown. She wanted to walk across that stage, not for the people who gave up on her, but for herself and for her baby. So she stayed. She walked those hallways every single day with swollen feet and an aching back. She sat in class while her stomach twisted with kicks and cramps. She studied while holding her belly, whispering to her baby, "We're going to be okay," and she meant it. The baby's father was long gone. Tyler was a boy she met at a party. They talked for a few weeks. He was charming, popular, but shallow. The minute she told him she was pregnant, he blocked. Her number disappeared. At first, she was crushed, then angry. Now, she didn't even think about him. She didn't need him. She was doing this without him. One day, after school, Sarah was walking home when a woman stopped her at a traffic light. She looked about 50, with soft blonde curls and kind eyes. "You're Sarah, right?" the woman asked. Sarah blinked. "Yeah, I'm Mrs. Benson. I teach English at Ridgefield High, across town. I've seen your name in a few essays entered in the youth writing contest. You've got a gift." Sarah stared at her, stunned. "You've read my writing?" Mrs. Benson smiled. "A few pieces, yes. Very raw, very honest. You write like someone who's lived a lot." Sarah didn't know what to say. No one had talked about her writing in months. "Not since the pregnancy," Mrs. Benson continued. "There's a small scholarship we give each year to a student writer who shows strength through storytelling. I think you should apply." Sarah swallowed hard. "Even though I'm Mrs. Benson looked her in the eye. "Especially because you are." That night, Sarah stayed up until a.m., typing on her mom's old laptop. She wrote her story, every painful, messy, beautiful piece of it. Not just the pregnancy, but the loneliness, the judgment, the fight to keep going. She wrote for her unborn daughter, for girls like her, for every teen told they were done before they even started. She submitted it the next morning. A few weeks later, the cramps started. She was 8.5 months pregnant, sitting in math class, trying to focus on equations when a sharp pain hit her lower back. She gasped. Everyone turned. Her teacher rushed over. I think it's time," Sarah whispered. She was rushed to the hospital. Her mother showed up an hour later, anxious and angry, but under the worry was something else, something closer to fear. 12 hours later, with sweat dripping down her face and a scream ripping through her chest, Sarah gave birth to a baby. Girl, her baby, her daughter, tiny, pink, crying, and perfect. Sarah held her close and whispered, "We did it, little one." She named her Hope, because that's what she had been missing for so long, and now she had it again. The first few weeks were a blur. No sleep, constant feedings, diapers, crying, exhaustion. She thought school was hard. Being a new mom was a battlefield. Her mother helped a little, though still distant. Ron softened too, holding Hope once in a while, quietly watching cartoons with her in the early mornings. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. And Sarah? She went back to school just 2 weeks after giving birth. People thought she was crazy, but she refused to miss graduation. With Hope bundled in a carrier strapped to her chest, Sarah sat in the school library catching up on her missed exams. She balanced bottles and textbooks, midnight feedings and morning tests. Some days she broke down crying, but quitting? Never. A month before graduation, she got a letter in the mail from Mrs. Benson. Sarah held her breath as she opened it. She read the first line aloud. "Congratulations, Sarah. You are this year's recipient of the Bright Futures Writing Scholarship." It wasn't a full ride, but it was something. A door, a spark, enough to believe again. When graduation day came, Sarah stood in line with her classmates, cap on her head, Hope in her mother's arms. As her name was called, the crowd clapped politely. Then someone stood up, Cassie, then another classmate, then a teacher. One by one, people rose to their feet, clapping louder and louder. Not everyone had given up on her after all. Sarah walked across the stage, tears in her eyes, hope in her heart, and her baby in the front row, the reason she never gave up. The day Sarah stepped onto her college campus, she was holding two things, her backpack and Hope's tiny hand. It wasn't a big university, just a local community college 10 minutes from home. But for Sarah, it was a dream she thought she'd never reach. She had planned everything carefully. Classes in the morning while Hope was at daycare, homework during her daughter's naps, a part-time job at a nearby coffee shop in the evenings. Every hour of her day had a purpose. Still, nothing could prepare her for how hard it really was. Some days, she felt like she was juggling fire. One morning, after a sleepless night with a teething baby, she dozed off during her English lecture. Her professor gently shook her awake, and Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment. She apologized, but he just smiled and said, "You're doing better than most, Sarah. Keep going." Not everyone was so kind. One girl in her literature class whispered loud enough for Sarah to hear. She should be at home with her kid, not here pretending to be a student. Those words stung, but Sarah swallowed her anger and focused on her notebook. Let them talk. She knew what she was building. Each class, each test, each page she wrote, it was a brick in the foundation of the life she wanted for Hope. The daycare on campus was a blessing. It wasn't fancy, but the staff was gentle, and they adored Hope. Every time Sarah peeked through the window before picking her up, she saw her daughter laughing, playing with blocks, or napping peacefully. It gave her strength, but money was always tight. Even with a scholarship and a student grant, expenses piled up: books, baby supplies, rent, bus fare, food. Sarah worked late nights at the coffee shop, making lattes and wiping tables. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, but she never complained. Hope was worth it every time her little girl looked up at her with sleepy eyes or wrapped her arms around Sarah's neck. She knew this was her purpose. Hope gave her life meaning. One night, Sarah came home to find a note taped to the front door. It was from the building manager. Final notice. Rent due in 3 days or face eviction. Her heart dropped. She sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the paper, while Hope slept in the bedroom, unaware of the storm outside. Sarah had $112 in her bank account. Rent was $680. She took a deep breath and called her mother. Her fingers trembled as she held the phone. The line rang. Then again. Finally, her mom answered. "Hi," Sarah said softly. Silence. "Hi," her mom replied, her voice flat. I need help." Another pause. "How much?" her mom asked. $500. Her mother sighed. "You said you could handle this." "I know. I've been working so hard, but I'm falling behind." There was a long pause. Then her mom said, "I'll transfer it. But this is the last time." Sarah blinked away tears. Thank you. She didn't ask for love, just help. And even though her mother still didn't understand, she had come through. The next morning, Sarah paid the rent. Crisis avoided, but it shook her. She knew she couldn't keep skating so close to the edge, so she started something new. Late at night, after Hope was asleep, Sarah began writing again. Stories, blog posts, personal essays about teen motherhood, about shame and strength, about survival. She created a blog called Hope and Me. At first, no one read it, but she kept posting honest, raw, simple stories. Then one day, someone shared one of her posts on social media, then another. Soon, her traffic grew. People left comments. "You're so brave. I'm a teen mom too. I thought I was alone. Thank you for sharing your story." It lit a fire in her. She began to dream bigger. Maybe her voice mattered. Maybe she could help others. One day, she received an email. It was from a woman named Rebecca who ran an online magazine focused on real-life stories from women. She wanted to publish one of Sarah's blog posts. They would pay her $75. Sarah stared at the screen, her hands shaking. She whispered, "We're going to be okay, baby girl." And she meant it. That small payment wasn't just money. It was proof that she had something to say, that she wasn't a statistic, that she wasn't a failure. She was a writer, a mother, a fighter. As the months passed, Sarah's blog grew. Her grades stayed strong. Hope learned to say mama and danced every time music played. And one sunny afternoon, as Sarah walked across campus holding Hope's hand, her old literature professor stopped her. "I read your article," he said. Sarah smiled, surprised. "You did?" He nodded. "You have a gift. Don't stop writing." That night, Sarah wrote in her journal, "Everyone gave up on me, but I never gave up on myself. And I never will." She tucked the journal away, kissed Hope's forehead, and turned out the light. The world hadn't changed overnight, but she had, and that made all the difference. 3 years had passed since Sarah walked into her first college class with a baby on her hip and fear in her heart. Now, she was walking into her final semester. Hope was 4 years old, full of energy, questions, and big ideas. She had curly, blonde hair, a loud laugh, and a heart just as bright as her name. People often said she looked just like Sarah, but braver. Sarah had learned to balance life better now. She still worked evenings at the coffee shop, but her blog, Hope and Me, was now earning a small but steady income from sponsored posts and online writing gigs. She'd even spoken on a few panels about teen motherhood and resilience. She still got tired, still faced judgment, but now, she walked through it with her head higher, until one email changed everything again. It was from a woman named Karen, the editor of a major online publication for young women. "I've been following your blog for over a year," it said. "We're starting a new column on motherhood and empowerment. We'd love you to be one of our writers." Sarah stared at the screen, stunned. They were offering her a contract $100 per article, twice a month, more than just money. This was recognition. Someone believed in her voice. She accepted the offer, then walked into Hope's room, picked her up, and twirled her in the air. Mommy got a writing job. She laughed. Hope clapped her hands. Are we rich now? Sarah giggled. Not yet, baby, but we're getting there. That same week, her college posted the list of students selected to speak at graduation. Sarah's name was on it. She was being honored for academic excellence and community impact. One of her professors had nominated her, inspired by her blog, her grades, and her courage. Sarah sat quietly in the hallway after reading the notice, tears in her eyes. She remembered how people had laughed at her, how her classmates in high school had called her wasted potential and whispered behind her back. Now, she was not just graduating, she was leading. Still, not everything was easy. One day, she took Hope to the clinic for a fever and ran into one of her old classmates, Rachel, the same girl who had once told her she'd ruined her life. Rachel looked shocked to see Sarah there. You look great, she said awkwardly. Sarah smiled. Thanks. We're doing well. This your kid? Sarah nodded. Rachel blinked. Wow, I didn't think you'd, make it. Sarah didn't get angry. She just said, neither did a lot of people. Rachel stood in silence. Then she said, quietly, good for you, and walked away. That night, Sarah wrote about it on her blog. The post was titled, They Didn't Think I'd Make It. It went viral. Over 10,000 people shared it within a week. Messages poured in from young moms, single parents, girls still in high school who were scared, and even some older women who had once walked a similar path but had never told anyone. Sarah replied to as many as she could. You're not alone. You can do this. You are not your mistakes. Hope often watched her mom typing on the old laptop at the kitchen table. One day, she climbed onto Sarah's lap and asked, Mommy, are you writing magic again? Sarah laughed. Kind of, sweetie. What kind? The kind that makes people believe in themselves. Hope nodded wisely, then added, That's the best kind. In her final weeks of school, Sarah prepared for her speech. She practiced it after Hope went to sleep, speaking to the empty living room while her daughter snored on the couch nearby. She didn't want to be perfect. She wanted to be honest. On graduation day, the auditorium was packed. Families, students, faculty all dressed up and smiling. Sarah wore a simple white dress under her gown and held Hope's hand tightly as they walked in. When her name was called, she stepped up to the podium. For a moment, she froze. Then she looked out at the sea of faces and spotted her mother, sitting in the third row, tears in her eyes. They hadn't always seen eye to eye, but today, her mother had come. Sarah took a breath and began, I got pregnant at 17, she said. And that was the first time people gave up on me. She paused, letting the words sink in. They said I ruined my future, that I'd never finish school, that I'd be a burden, that I'd always struggle. She glanced at Hope in the front row, sitting on her professor's lap, beaming with pride, but they were wrong. A few people nodded. Some leaned in. I've spent the last few years proving something not just to them, but to myself. I wanted my daughter to grow up knowing that no matter where you start in life, you can rise. That love and grit and hard work still means something. She smiled, voice strong now. Being a mother didn't ruin my future. It shaped it. It gave me a reason to fight harder, stand taller, and never give up. And today, I'm not just graduating, I'm showing every young woman out there that it is possible, that you are possible. The room rose in applause. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Hope clapped the loudest of all. That night, they went home and celebrated with pizza, sparkling apple juice, and music. Hope twirled in her pajamas and shouted, My mommy is a genius. Sarah laughed so hard she cried. Not long after, her blog was picked up by a major publishing company to be turned into a book. The title? Hope and Me. How a teen mom rewrote her story. It had been 2 years since Sarah stood on stage in her white dress and told the world she wasn't ruined. Now, she stood backstage again, but this time, she wasn't graduating. She was the keynote speaker at a national conference for women in education and empowerment. Her book, Hope and Me, had sold over 50,000 copies. Her blog was now a full website with resources for young moms, scholarship lists, parenting guides, and a community forum. She had even launched a nonprofit that gave free laptops and daycare vouchers to teen mothers in school. Sarah had become more than just a writer, she had become a leader, but even as she spoke to thousands of people, she never let the spotlight take her away from what mattered most. Hope, now 6 years old, Hope was sitting in the front row again, wearing a pink dress and clutching a small notebook. She had recently told Sarah she wanted to be a writer too. "I want to write books. Like you, Mommy," she had said one night while lying beside her in bed. Sarah had kissed her forehead. "Then you will, baby, and I'll be your first reader." As the announcer introduced her name, Sarah stepped onto the stage to a standing ovation. Cameras flashed, hands clapped, and her name echoed in the room, but her eyes were only on Hope. "Thank you," she began, holding the microphone steady. "It still surprises me that people want to hear my story, because for a long time, I didn't think it was worth telling." She paused. "I was 17 when I got pregnant. My world fell apart. I lost friends, I disappointed my family, and I gave up on myself more than once." The room was silent, listening, but then something happened. I looked at the little girl growing inside me and realized I could still build something. I could still be something, and most of all, I could give her a life full of love and courage. She looked at Hope, who smiled and waved. Raising Hope didn't break me. It made me. It taught me discipline, patience, and strength I never knew I had. It made me study harder, work longer, cry softer, and love deeper. People were wiping tears. A few clutched their hearts, and now, years later, I'm here. Not because I did it alone, but because I stopped listening to the voices that said I couldn't. Because I believed one simple thing: your story isn't over because of one mistake. Sometimes the mistake becomes your greatest chapter. The audience rose again, clapping thunderously. When she stepped down from the stage, Hope ran up to her and hugged her tight. "You were the best speaker," she said. "I took notes." Sarah laughed, lifting her daughter. "You're my best note-taker." Later that week, Sarah visited her old high school for the first time since she dropped out. She had been invited to speak to the students about resilience and choices. As she walked through the halls, memories rushed back the stairs, the whispers, the day she left. The principal, a kind older man, greeted her with warmth. "We're proud of you, Sarah. You've done what few could." In the auditorium, dozens of teen girls listened to her speak, some pregnant, some new moms, some just struggling to see a future. "I sat in these seats," she said. "I thought my life was over, but I was wrong. I just had to write it differently." After her talk, a girl came up to her with tears in her eyes. "I'm 17, and I just found out I'm pregnant," she whispered. Sarah didn't say anything at first. She just took her hand and squeezed it gently. "You're not alone," she said, "and you are not finished." That night, Sarah sat on the porch of her small house, watching Hope play with her cousins in the yard. The sun was setting. The sky was streaked with soft pinks and gold. Her mother brought out a tray of lemonade and sat beside her. "I was wrong back then," her mother said quietly. "I shouldn't have doubted you." Sarah looked at her and smiled. "You were scared. I was too," her mom nodded. "But you made something beautiful out of it. You made her. You made this." Hope ran up to them and plopped down between them. "Can I have my own blog now, Mommy?" Sarah laughed. "Sure. What will you call it?" Hope thought for a moment. "Maybe Little Hope, Big Dreams." Her mother and grandmother looked at each other and smiled. "I think that's perfect," Sarah said. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still hard days. There always would be. But Sarah had rewritten her story. Not just for herself but for every girl who'd ever been told she couldn't. She had proven them all wrong, and more importantly, she had proven herself right.